Hello, everyone. Spirit of 420 here, introducing today's episode, which is first time I drove the moon car. So, yeah, you'll tune in. That's the title. If it didn't get you a little interested, then I don't know what to tell you. With that said, there is a time where I probably break down a little bit. I do not apologize whatsoever, because when you feel emotions, they come, and you're not less of a man or less of a person because you show your emotion. In fact, in my belief in the way that I see things, you don't want to wear them on your shoulder per se, but it's okay to show that you have emotion and show that you feel things and show that they matter, because otherwise, what the hell are we here for? You know, if you can't feel something great and feel something bad and really feel it, what's the purpose? Yin yang, balance. Anyway, with that said, have a wonderful day and enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. Spirit of 420 here, because everything I do is so 420. As my intro says, my stories are 100% factual, and I can prove it. The opinions are mine. You can't have them, but you're more than welcome to share them. So, continuing to tell you just a little bit more about myself, which, and preface these particular things. Number one, I really do feel like I have to do this. This is something God is directing to do. And, it's funny. I remember watching, growing up, when I didn't have a great relationship with God, I would watch these superstars from film, music, sports, everywhere, always thanking God. And I remember thinking, wow, that just seemed hokey. Well, when God actually shows him herself to you, you stop wondering. So that's all I'll say for that part. I have been extremely busy, so you can see I do have probably 4 or 5 days of scruff on the face. It is what it is. With me today is Little Sax and White Widow. I did not do... Okay, this joint is so stupid ganked. Folks, this cone, excuse me, to get the verbiage right, this cone is so stupid ganked, it's like, the old adage, trying to suck a golf ball through a freaking hose. Literally, you cannot get it to burn, and it'll be burning. It'll have a coal on the front, and I'll blow out just this little tiny poof, just a little poof, just a tiny little poof, just a tiny little poof of smoke. I've got 100 voices. We'll start to get into that. That's down the road. Why be entertaining when I could be boring? Anyway, been working on something heavily. It's a big surprise. I think everybody in the cannabis community is really going to love it. I do believe that. And I think even some others, quite frankly. But definitely the cannabis community. I'm hoping to be able to announce it on Monday's show, but we'll see. So today I couldn't decide what I was going to talk about. I actually had I have thousands of stories. I'm not kidding you. It seems like every other day something crazy happens. So I've got at least 3-4 years that I can tell you a story every single day, and then I'll have more stories from those years. But back to the point, I had 3 stories I was going to, that I came down to deciding. One was Tales of a Drug Lord, Chapter 2, Building the Foundation of an Empire, and that was at 23 years old. Then I was also thinking about sharing the first time that I drove at a fresh 15, just turned 15 years old. And then I was also thinking about the first time that I escaped death, one of those that I'm going to call, Should Be Dead series, and that was 15 months old. So I'm not going to do the Tales from a Drug Lord. I'm going to save that for another day. And when I was thinking about this, I was like, what's the funniest one? And I think I'll go with driving, although I will say they're all hysterical. Well, the Tales from the Drug Lord is not hysterical. It's more documentary, if you will. I try to fill it with humor, but who knows? I'm probably not that funny. I'm sure a lot of people just said, no, you're not, dude. Fucking shut up. So, back to the story. I think I'm going to go with the driving. I see student drivers all the time out there right now. It's a thriving industry. Funny enough, it wasn't when I was growing up. You didn't see them at all. You barely saw anybody, and if they were doing student driving, they were usually in a confined parking lot with a lot of cones. Now they're out there on the streets, and they're horrible. I'll just say real quick, I got behind one this morning doing a grocery pickup to Wally World. Yeah, like most people, I do the Walmart thing, and I get pickup because then I don't have to deal with the people. No offense to them. But on my way home, nonetheless, I got behind one of these student drivers, and the light turned green to turn left. I swear to God, this person, I never even looked to see if it was a man or a woman, but they took like a whole 60 seconds to make a left turn. I don't know if you guys know it, but lots of times that's the entire damn light sequence when it comes to being able to turn left. Regardless, she did finally, or he finally, I really don't know who it was. They finally turned left, and I got into the right lane because they did the proper thing and turned directly into the left-hand side of the lane in a 2-lane road. I got into the right lane, and I took off. It's a 35-mile-an-hour zone, but in this zone, everybody around here does 45, 50 miles an hour. I've seen cops doing. I've driven with cops doing that speed. But of course, they're going to be told to do, the speed limit. Probably allowed them to maybe do 5 miles over, but traffic was still blasting. There was a moving truck that literally ended up passing this person, which I thought was funny. So, anyway, me as a student driver, oh, what a story. You're going to love this. 15 years old. It was summer. My mother had this old, I can't remember who makes it, but it was called a Pacer. And we used to call it Moon Car because it was a lot of glass. Like, it had a big glass hatchback, these 2 big glass panels that went along the back. Then, huge glass doors, huge glass windshield, just glass all over the place. And it was silver, so it kind of looked like it belonged on the moon. And we called it the Moon Car. And her lover at the time was the one, and I've said this before, but my mom came out of the closet, and this was now her second lover. And I was 15 years old. Her first lover was when I was 4, and she left her around the time I was 6.5, 7 years old, really just so that she could move back, and then she was with this person. And I'll keep all this stuff. Let's see, what's a good name for? Trying to think of something. Let's go with Katrina. So Katrina was my mom's lover at this time, and had been for, like 8 years. I mean, she really was a second mom to me, and I loved her dearly. And so she was going to teach me to drive, and I wanted to learn a stick. So this was a stick shift. It was this was, if I'm not mistaken, talking about a little 3-speed. It might have been a 4-speed, but it seems like it was a 3-speed. We're talking 1987. So, and I meant to gather some facts from 1987. I will tell you this: I was already listening to, just started listening to, consistently listening to Motley Crue, but I think I just started listening to Guns N' Roses. That was a huge album, Appetite for Destruction, at that time. Gosh darn it, I can't think of a ding-dong film that came in that, and I was going to look up some facts and have them for you folks. I'll put them in the notes, or you know what, I'm actually going to come back and I'll do a little extra. Unfortunately, I can't set the tone right now, but if you want, skip ahead, watch the extra. Boom, there you go. So, back to the Moon Car and Katrina. So Katrina is teaching me how to drive, and everything was going fairly well. It actually did really well. We lived out in the country. This was in the boons, and we lived actually on a lake, so it was even more boony than normal. But we had this little place down the street that we would go that was like a one-shop stop. I mean, you could literally buy bait there. You could get your fresh cooked breakfast and biscuits there. You could literally buy clothes there. They had clothes, not just hunting and fishing clothes, but they also had just regular clothes. You could rent tapes there. This was back in the day when it was Betamax, but you could rent tapes. Literally everything that was at Walmart was at this place, but in a much, condensed version. So I'm on my first drive, and I'm doing well. And Katrina's like, hey, why don't you go to the shop? And I was like, really? Which means, here I am not on license. I'm going to get on the road, because up until that time, I was just on back roads of the neighborhood that went around the lake. So, excuse me. That one caught me, boy. And I don't cut it. I try to do this raw dog in it. Nonetheless, back to the story. So we get on the main road. Everything's fine. I get down to the shop, and we're pulling up to the gas pump. And the way I did it, I probably don't know how to explain this, but the shop was on the corner of a crossroads, and I went through the intersection and then turned into it. So I went alongside the pump, driver's side, right? No, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Now I remember. I went in the other way. I turned left at the intersection and came in on the right side. That's what it was. And I came along the pump, with the pump being on the passenger side, right? So the pump's on the passenger side. And I'm going, and she's like, turn it around. And I started to turn around, but I was not familiar. This is my first time driving. I was not familiar with how much extra room you have to give when you do right turns, because you're on the left side of the car. And I know everybody knows those concrete pillars that stand about, 3.5, 4 feet tall, whatever they are, round on the top, right, that we all put our cigarettes out on. But anyway, I ended up running the Moon car, just ran the whole right side, the whole passenger side along that, put 2 huge dents in the Moon car that stayed in that car until we got rid of it. We never did pop those dents out, but that was my very first attempt at driving. Funny enough, other than that, and quite frankly, Katrina was, even though she was flipping out what happened, she laughed afterwards. We all laughed about it. It was kind of funny. I still drove really well. I did pretty damn good. Now, skip forward, because that was in the summertime. I spent the summers with my mother. So skip forward now, I'm back home with my father, and he's wanting to teach me to drive, and he's got one of these little Nissan pup trucks, I don't even think it was honestly a 4x4. It was just a little 2-wheel drive pup truck. Sorry about that. You'll probably see a slight clip in the editing. I had forgotten to erase the previous last couple of episodes after I backed them up, and I didn't have enough room to continue filming, so had a little blurb there for just a moment. Anyway, he had one of these little pup trucks. I'm pretty sure it was a Nissan, or it might have been an Isuzu, I think it might have been an Isuzu, but they were very popular. This is, again, 1987. It was beige, and we lived in a neighborhood with a lot of roads inside the neighborhood that I could drive on when we pulled around far away from the house, thank God, because the yelling match that ensued, because that's how bad it went. It went no better. In essence, it was still a horrible event in my life. It was probably more traumatic, quite frankly, because my father and I ended up getting into a yelling match, because all I could do with his truck was make it go, ka-chug, 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 ka-chug. It was it. It doesn't, and it was so hard to get that fucking truck to start rolling, to get into second gear, and reverse. Oh my God, forget about it. Reverse. It's even tighter fucking gear. And that one, let's just say, it was not a pretty day in the house. So, regardless to say, moving on, it was both of my first time driving experiences were how do you say, notorious for me in my life, as almost every damn thing else is. So something strange. So back to 12 years old, back to 1984. Obviously, I did listen to Purple Rain. I listened to Prince. I listened to a lot of music. But funny enough, for those who were really into classic rock and roll at the time, now remember this is like 1984, so classic rock and roll back then, not ancient rock and roll, which it is now. But classic rock and roll back then was Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Rolling Stones, Beatles, Allman Brothers, and everybody was listening to those. Not myself. And again, just to kind of take a moment here, I was extremely diverse. I loved classic rock. I listened to every one of those bands and knew them very well. And in fact, I don't know that I said Pink Floyd, but if I didn't, Pink Floyd is in there, one of my all-time favorites today. But at the same time, I was also back then listening to, all kinds of different music from Footloose. So I was also listening to Van Halen, which came out that year, 1984. Footloose came out that year. I think I mentioned that before. And I was trying to think of some of the other bands. I was also listening to Kiss, which was not classic rock and roll at the time. They were still making a lot of prevalent music. And 84, oh goodness gracious, Fleetwood Mac would be in that scenario. And then going on and through life, I had extreme diversity. My father listened to a lot of Motown, so I left I loved all kinds of soul music. Again, kind of drawn. Shaka Khan was one that listened to back then. Hell, I even listened, quite frankly, to Sheena Easton, who had just put out, I think 1984 was around the time that For Your Eyes Only, 007 movie came out. Back to the point. One of the things that I thought was strange about me over the years is that at that particular time, when everybody was so deep into those other classic rock and roll, and many of it picked one of those as their favorite, for me it was Toll. Not Tool, Toll, Jethro Tull. Ian Anderson's Jethro Tull. I just was enthralled with the music. I thought it was some of the, I always love uniqueness. I always love things that are different. I pride myself on doing things against the rules. I think I've already said that. But his music and the fact that he used a flute, and not only used a flute in an electric capacity, but used it very successfully in rock and roll music, just blew me away. So, at the time, I think the two biggest albums I was listening to were Songs from the Woods and Benefit. Well, actually three. Benefit, and then, of course, Aqualung. So Aqualung, Benefit, and Songs from the Woods I was listening to almost like it was a religion, and loved it. Tried to get my friends into it, and of course, a lot of them didn't do it. I told you I lived in the South, deep South, so people didn't really take to Toll nearly as quickly as they took to, say, Lynyrd Skynyrd or Pink Floyd, but it is what it is. I love them, so it was a bit strange for me at the time. That bowl is dead. So while I pick this other bowl up and have a sip of coffee here, because I know don't you love that cup? I will give a shout out to. Well, no, I guess I won't. So forget it. Doesn't matter. Just skip it. Don't worry about it. You don't get to know, right? I'll tell you maybe another day. Everything happens for a reason, just as it's supposed to. I kind of told you a story the other day about how an old friend and colleague popped into my life all of a sudden at the exact right moment, and I was having a meeting with him, and sure enough, he said yes, and I'm extremely happy, and he's actually right now, while I'm recording this, working on my surprise for me and helping me with some of the technical issues that I'm having. So I promise you, God is real. It's you can say what you want, but kind of think of it like this. I explained it to someone the other day. And for those of you who really do know GTA, you know GTA, so I'm using it as an example. I will go further. If you don't know GTA specifically, think of any sandbox video game out there. The whole reality of these games, like I can go into GTA 5 right now, and I can play for weeks on end without actually pushing my story forward at all. I can just run around killing people. I can run around doing side missions. I can run around doing all kinds of stuff, but I don't actually have to even. I don't even have to. Keyword, have to. Choice, right? Because there is choice. Even though everything happens the way it's supposed to, it's odd enough you have a choice. So think of it like that game. You have a choice of whether or not you can push your story forward, right? Or just sit around and philander. Quite frankly, I did that for quite a while, which you will continue to see, with the fact that I have at least off the top of my head that I've already written down 7 instances where I should be dead. And, if I have 9 lives, well, I'm glad I finally figured it out because I'm getting close. But back to GTA and the sandbox, right? And other sandbox games are the same way. You can run around the sandbox and have fun, or you can actually drive the story of that video game. Well, again, think of life in the same way. You can sit there and do what you want, but then as you do checkpoints, you're doing the path. And the more checkpoints that you do, and the quicker that you do them, the faster your story, your actual path, unfolds. It's just that fucking simple, I'm sorry, if you could fucking feel God the way I've come to feel God over the last 4 years, and let God in. I don't care what religion. That's the whole point. We all speak different languages, people. We all speak different languages, and you're never going to be able to tell someone else another language, right? So God sends messengers through time and space, through time and errors and countries to send the message, but there is a God, don't you forget it. And every fucking one of you are special. I'm special. You're special. Anybody listening to this is special. I hope you people get this out. I hope people really start to get it. But I'm going to keep saying it for as long as I live now. You know, it's funny. I'll give a shout out to Wahlberg, Mark Wahlberg. You know, his new movie. I haven't gone to see it yet because I know I'm going to probably sit there and bawl like a bitch. I bawled on the trailer, for God's sakes. I barely held it together. But his new movie, Father Stu, you know, is incredible. But I don't know if you've heard, but he's made, I read an article not too long ago where he is, and I'm not trying to be political or religion. I'm just, you know, it's not religion for me. It's spirituality. But he has said that he's really dedicating his life now to the Catholic religion, which is his religion. And that's awesome. And kudos to him. And I hope he commits to it. I know that I truly have, because I've never felt happy. The one thing my mother always wanted for me when I was growing up was to be truly happy. She said she wasn't. She said she was never really happy, even though she tried to be. And she put on a good show of being. But she always wanted me to be happy. And I've tried to tell her I'm finally happy. I've been happy. And you know, it took my wife getting hit by a car, nearly losing my life twice, losing everything in my life twice, you know, and being humbled to really find my happiness. But I tell you what, if you don't have to go through all the shit that I went through, and that's actually more than 2. I lived on the streets when I was 19, or 17, 18, whatever the hell it was, 19, somewhere in there. It's another story, another day. But I'm just telling you, it's a fact, you know. You don't have to go to an extreme bottom, but, you know, sometimes that's what it takes. Everybody's bottom is different. Everybody's hole is different to when they finally look up and see the light. That's enough. Most people don't realize just how normal strange is. I'm extremely strange, folks. I am trying to start the hashtag be more strange, hashtag strange is good. I'm going to start adding that to everything I can, if I can. Hashtag cannabis community comes first, though, because that's where I'm trying to reach most folks. Opinions. Everybody thinks opinions are like assholes. We all have them. And everybody thinks that everybody else's stinks. Mine smell like, you know it, fresh brewed coffee. And this is a blend of weed today. I call it a salad when I do that. But a salad of dank medical flower. Till our next encounter, folks. Peace. Yeah, I told you I would have the facts. Oh my gosh. Dropped my glasses there. Sorry about that. I got to put these on and be the real old guy. So funny enough, 87 wasn't a hugely, you know, whatever you want to call it, eventful year, but there was some big things. So Simpsons and Full House both debuted that year. You also had the Baby M case, which was the validity of surrogacy. You also had, let's see, what was it? Oh, apparently somebody named, I guess it's Mathis Rust, landed a small Cessna into Moscow in the Red Square. Landed a plane there. I didn't know. I don't remember that one. That's kind of funny. Ronald Reagan gave his famous speech at the Berlin Wall in West Berlin. Let's see. Disney and France. I thought that was kind of interesting. Disney and France agreed to build a theme park, to create an amusement park, excuse me. And this was the funny one. So, U.S. stock market crashed on Monday, October 19th, 1987, with a 508-point drop, which boils down to 22.6% drop in a day. Wow, that's a fucking crash for you. So anyway, there's a few tidbits. Hopefully you skip forward, watch this, so it sets the tone for when I decided to run that car right up against... Oh, no, I didn't say that, did I? You didn't skip forward anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, see you next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Adios. You know, as always, I forgot something, and my wife would kill me. So it's the shirt. If you can't read it, I'm the husband of a Hungarian woman. Nothing scares me. So I have to, if I didn't give her that shout out, then quite frankly, I would be disappointed, but she would be very disappointed in me. So I am the husband of a Hungarian woman. Nothing scares me. That, I think, is all.